What's up, everybody? Thanks for listening to the Whatcast. We are excited to talk about this. We gave a hint with the Quick and the Weird that we were going to dive into the Age of Disclosure documentary. The time has come, and we are going to do that now.
Yeah, we did it, guys.
Yeah, we did it. We watched it, and then it disappeared. Did you get 48 hours to watch something after you rented on Amazon Prime?
Yeah.
What's happening?
Honestly, we should have just bought it. I think it was $5 more to buy it.
Yeah, for sure.
Should have just bought it, but
you're absolutely right, because now we're just going to buy it.
Yeah, now we're going to have to go back and pay for it a second time, and that's bullshit. But way of the world, live and learn, all that.
Right. So the shock and awe of watching this documentary has worn off. We're first going to go over what's in this documentary, and then we're going to talk about what we felt about it after watching it, how we feel about it now. Mike, I think it's fair to start off by saying that this documentary is basically a breakdown of what ATIPS is, and then what's happened, what they've done, and where all this shit stands officially with the government up to now.
It's definitely a lot different than I thought it was going to be. I thought it was going to be another one of those, here's a history of the UFO phenomenon, and then like the second half would be tying it into the whole disclosure thing. But it was pretty firmly centered around disclosure, and it was like a for anyone that watched the disclosure interview DVD from or video, I guess it's posted on YouTube now, but for anyone who's watched the Stephen Greer documentary, where he just basically lets military and government officials tell their stories, it was like a combination of that and like your typical disclosure documentary. The bulk of this was just edited interviews with high-ranking members of the military and the government, and talking about what they knew or what they've found out since being in their position, how they I guess the information that they're privy to, and I'm sure that there's more information that they didn't put out there, either due to being classified or extraordinary claims. I'll get into the extraordinary claims a bit later, because there's some of the people on here make some very interesting claims that ties into a lot of the shit that I've been saying for years now, which I think is pretty cool.
Right.
They didn't really get into that stuff, though. Like, they didn't get into the high strangeness of the phenomenon and like all the weird shit. It was more trying to discuss it from I guess like a believable side of things, like dip your toe into the pool sort of thing. It was definitely geared more towards people that aren't dealing with this topic, or that aren't familiar with this topic, I should say, that aren't, that like us, we've been reading about this shit since we've been kids. But I think this is geared more towards people that are new to the subject, that are interested in it because now it's becoming mainstream and potentially believable. So I think because of that, they kind of toned down the high strangeness stuff and just stuck to the basics. Weird craft in the sky we don't know about, weird craft in the water we don't know about, and just kind of going with that.
See, for me, I guess it'll highlight our perspectives. I think that I had mentioned before that, no matter what it is, I hope that it was just like a huge information dump. And that's exactly what it is.
Yeah, definitely.
It's basically a modern day telling of whistleblower stories. But what stands out to me is, like we talked about before, is the rank of these people and who's blowing the whistle and saying what.
Right.
I think that I don't think it's geared towards beginners. I think it's just told in a way that anybody can walk up to it. So I think it might seem like a little bit I don't know, adolescent to us, because we watched all this unfold basically. So, but so anybody who wants to know what the fuck is going on with this shit on an official capacity, it's for them. And I think that the presentation, the path that they took to present this information, we'll get into in a little bit, but I think that has to do with how they presented it, why it seems a little tame. I think there are some extraordinary claims, and it goes a little bit past dipping your toe in. These people who,
well, when I say extraordinary claims, like I'm talking shit like I was researching UFOs and now I'm being haunted by poltergeist activity.
right.
There's none of that, even though there's like 3 people that were on this documentary that have been researching it that have had that experience.
Oh wow.
Yeah. And that's what I mean. Like you're not hearing about all the weird shit that we've talked about. Like there's no dick nose. There's no drill hands being talked about.
Right.
You know, like none of the crazy shit. The only classic case that they even brought up, and they only brought it up slightly, was the Roswell case. And that didn't come out until much later in the documentary, which was really refreshing, because usually that's like where they start, like 1947. But now, you know, it was mentioned just kind of in passing, like, yeah, this was something that happened, this was, you know, and then moving on. But they didn't start there, and I appreciated that. And when I say beginners, that's not to say that it's not something like the last documentary we covered was definitely beginner's documentary. It was like baby's first UFO documentary. I can't even remember the name of it now. But this one was definitely, there's a lot of stuff for people that have been following all along to be like, wow, damn, like I remember hearing about that, or making connections to stuff. But it's also not so far into the weeds that someone who's new to the topic is going to be lost. Like it's very clear they're not muddying the waters with the what they're discussing. It's not going to be confusing for new people. Like this would be a perfect thing for someone who's just been following since the New York Times story broke a few years ago. And to get in and be like, okay, so this is what I've been hearing about, and it kind of goes through all of that.
Right, and I guess that's a good place to start. And I wanted to start off just the way the documentary did. This is basically the people who made ATIBs. I mean, there's no like Sharon from Baltimore telling her fucking story in this. This is the people who this is the people who made ATIBs, and people involved telling as absolute much as they can without revealing classified shit. And some of this stuff, I mean, to me, there's a few times where there's even people on Capitol Hill, I was like, whoa, you're getting a little too close to the nail there. But it seems to me some of this has to be classified. But they started off with confirming everything that you want to believe about this shit. There are UFOs. They are not piloted by humans. They're not piloted by radio-controlled means. They're not drones. They have recovered UFOs. They have recovered alien bodies, and that's how they start this shit. And then after that, they break into introducing Lou Elizondo. Mike, what do you think about Lou after watching this documentary? Because I like the guy. To me, people want to, like, we poke fun at conspiracy stuff and even talk about disinformation agents, but I think at this guy's level of job, when he took this on, like they picked this guy, they're not like, hey, are you a venomous snake murderous motherfucker? You're in. You know, I think they at this level, they're picking the people who are probably fit to do the job. They just didn't like what he finds. So what do you think about Lou after this?
I don't know. I go back and forth on him. To me, he's like the this generation's Bob Lazar, where he makes extraordinary claims regarding his role with the government, and the government says, nah, this guy's full of shit. And then you get to, you know, I guess pick sides on that one. Like, is he full of shit? Or is the government lying? Or maybe they're both lying. Maybe he did have a hand in the project, but he's also full of shit. He makes some extraordinary claims outside of the documentary, and there was one big thing that really kind of got me about him that to me hurt his credibility more than anything. In May of this year, he went to members of Congress where he was looking to get taxpayer funding to the tune of $1 billion to track and hunt aliens and their craft.
Whoa.
And as a means to kind of support this claim, he presented a fake UFO photo to the members of Congress and was quickly denied.
What? Are you got to be kidding me. When did this happen?
May 2025.
God.
So May of this year. Yeah.
Why would he do that?
I don't know. Maybe he didn't know it was fake. I don't know what his motivations were. But he also had made a claim because, you know, he talks about his military background in the documentary. But he said at one point while he was in the military, his job was to interrogate prisoners. And he tells the story about using psychic powers to turn himself into an angel in order to extract information. And I mean, you could take that a number of different ways. Like if you look at it from the surface level and just take it for what it is, like it sounds pretty hokey. Like, okay, you turned into an angel to interrogate a prisoner. But it could be something more along the lines of like an astral projection sort of thing where he kind of, you know, left his body or whatever.
Hold on. Turned into a fucking angel?
Yeah. Using psychic abilities.
Man.
So like I'm saying, like if it was more like an out of body thing or like even like a psychic battle of wills or something where he was leaving his body and you just have these psychic, I don't know, energy fields or whatever. And it's taking the form of an angel to show he's the good guy. I don't really know. It can be taken. I think you can take it different ways, but it's just a claim that he made.
Right. Okay.
And the fact that he was for a long time tied to Jeremy Corbell. I don't know if he's still connected with them because I know Jeremy Corbell talked a lot of shit about this documentary. So I don't know if they had a falling out or whatever, but
well, to me, it didn't even seem like a falling out. It just seems like he didn't like what they said and tried his best to politely poo-poo it. I saw that clip. I sent it to you to where he was like, they said the wrong things. They came at it the wrong way. I was like, what do you mean? They just presented what they found. Like, aren't you on the same team?
What he means by they presented it the wrong way is they didn't ask him to be involved. That's
right, dude.
That's
no shit.
He needs to get a new fucking Rolex. And he didn't get a new Rolex this year because he wasn't included.
Look, I went on Joe Rogan too many times. I haven't been on the internet in a minute. Come on.
Yeah, throw me a bone, guys. I've only got 5 Rolexes. I need a 6th one. God. And this beard isn't going to groom itself.
I use the top in rhinoceros oils in my beard.
Yeah. Yes, I need the best anal juice from extinct rhinos.
Yes, it's pressed in a giant machine, their anus gland, and I rub that substance into my face.
And it smells delicious.
A musk like no other.
Yeah. The ladies love it.
We're just kidding. We're not. We love you, Jeremy Corbell. I don't know if we love you.
I'm not kidding. I'm not kidding at all.
You rub that juice on your face.
Yeah, you rub that juice, motherfucker.
And I've got photos to prove it.
But regarding Lou, I don't know really. I go back and forth on him. For the longest time, I went back and forth on Bob Lazar as well, and I kind of landed now where I believe Bob Lazar to a certain extent. I believe what he's saying he thinks is the truth. I think that he may have been duped by whoever he was working for. Maybe he wasn't. I don't know. I think he's one of those people that were given little nuggets along the way. So like some of the stuff was real and some of the stuff was fake. And I think it was letting him go out and talk about it, I think was kind of a way to gauge the public response.
Right. And I officially like his documentary he did with Bobby Lasers. I like Jeremy Corbell's work.
I did too, but that was where I started to turn on Jeremy Corbell, though, was that documentary. Like, I liked the documentary, but then afterwards, it was like he had to be everywhere Bob Lazar was to get, like, I understand you made the movie, but it's about Bob Lazar. Like, we don't give a shit about what you have to say.
You know what? I'm glad you say that, because that's kind of the first thing that kind of perked my ears about Jimmy Corbell. Very handler feel. He's like a handler.
Yeah, big time. Which sucks because before he got involved with the Bob Lazar thing, like, he was actually doing some pretty cool stuff. And I was actually like his, I can't even remember what his website was called now, but he used to cover all sorts of crazy shit. And it was awesome.
Yeah, dude, you used to go there all the time.
Yeah. And then once this thing with Bob Lazar started, like, then he started becoming front and center, like, hey, everybody, look at me. Look at me. I'm the UFO guy now. And then he got involved with George Knapp, and then that kind of helped propel him further because George Knapp is a well-known journalist who also doesn't shy away from the UFO topic. So it kind of, and then they started working on projects together, and et cetera, et cetera. I don't really trust George Knapp anymore either. I think he has gone too far out there and is now part of the group of people that are controlling the narrative, so to speak. So I think a lot of the stuff he's putting out, it's one of those things where we're going to sprinkle some breadcrumbs around, and some of it's real, some of it's disinfo, and he's just there to kind of keep things murky, keep things hazy.
Okay, so back to this documentary. They get to Lou Elizondo and they tell him, the history, and they basically tell us he was approached with all the reports that they were getting, correct me if I'm wrong, Mike, from military personnel, like these encounters with these things that increase so much. They basically told Lou Elizondo, make a team and figure out what's fucking going on. And boy, does he pick a fucking team. Everybody that was involved to me was like, I was like, holy shit. This is beyond like who you want to be talking to and listening to and investigating this stuff. What did you think about the people he put together?
Well, I was wondering where Tom DeLonge was. That's what I was wondering.
Well, he's nowhere, man. He doesn't do nothing.
No. Well, that's what I'm saying. When Lou Elizondo first came out, he was working like hand in hand with Tom on his To the Stars Academy and all that shit. And like Tom was supposed to be the one that was at the forefront of UFO disclosure and everything. And now where the fuck is he gone?
I think that his appearance on Joe Rogan, I think he handled that wrong. I think he was treated insanely unfairly, but I think he handled that poorly, and I think that everybody around him that was working with him kind of backed away.
Yeah, that was a tough listen. That entire interview is just basically like, I know some really cool shit. Oh, tell us about the cool shit. Oh, I can't. But if I could, oh my God, it would blow your mind, but I can't.
Right.
And then, well, we've got some really cool evidence that we're going to be putting. Oh, what evidence you? Oh, I can't tell you. It's really cool though. It's really cool, but you just gotta wait. Like that was basically the entire fucking thing.
Right. Oh no, it was a little bit worse for me. It was, no, I'll tell you through my next album.
Oh yeah, and the comic book or whatever that I'm working on.
Right.
Like I'm going to be putting a lot of stuff out that's unrelated to UFOs, but it's going to have UFO themes, and in there is going to be some of the answers. Yeah, it was terrible, just fucking terrible. But yeah, so many of the people in this documentary are just like, you've got senators in there, you've got intelligence officials from the Pentagon, intelligence officials from the CIA. I think they had one of the directors or former directors of NASA on there. They had a Navy rear admiral on there, like crazy shit.
Yeah, the head of defense of airspace and shit. Like like the top of the top. To me, there's almost no one left that you'd want to talk about this stuff. And they handled every aspect, like top engineers at MIT, to tackle the aspect of these are drones. Like every base was covered.
Yeah, they didn't have anyone from the Marines, but I believe they had Army and Air Force officials as well on there. And I know once the UFO thing was accepted as being real by the military and the government, it was kind of handed over to the Air Force to kind of monitor, which was why in the early stages with Sign and Grudge and Blue Book, that was all run by the Air Force. And I believe ATIP was also being headed by the Air Force. But it's weird that a lot of the pilots that are coming out, like David Fravor and I can't remember the other dude's name, but those guys were Navy pilots, not Air Force pilots, which might be why they weren't aware of what's going on, because it's a project being run by
a different branch.
Yeah. So the Air Force is like, hey, let's ruffle the naval feathers a little bit. And then they send out these fucking weird tic tacs and they're like, hee 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 hee. Meanwhile, the Navy pilots are like, what the fuck is this?
Yeah. Okay, so they started talking about how one of the things that they asked them to investigate and why was the frequency of these things happening. And I thought that was interesting because no matter what Lou Elizondo and his team says, we can kind of verify that with what's on the internet and stories and stuff like that. And no matter what they say it is, that is true. That, you know, the frequency of these videos coming out and all these things. And they go into their testimony about what they talk about. Like Harry Reid does his thing. What do you think about some of the things they said? Like the things that stood out to me was a dude from MIT saying, you know, there's not a material on our planet that could basically do what these things are doing. It doesn't, you know, piloted by a person or a drone. There's like, these things are going 275,000 miles an hour. So,
right. And the maneuvers they take would be, and because that's always been the thing, right? With them talking about them being a piloted craft, that they don't have any way to maneuver like that if something living was inside, because just the G-forces alone would crush them. But not only that, what's not talked about as much is the effect that it would have on the craft itself. So they were discussing whether or not an unmanned craft could pull off these maneuvers, like where they'll basically go completely still, like they're stopped in midair, to all of a sudden they're miles away in the blink of an eye. Or when they do the 90-degree turns without slowing down, without making a big loop, just they're going straight, now they're going left. You know, they don't. But they were talking about that and how even unmanned craft trying to pull those maneuvers would be destroyed trying to do that, just because of the force of gravity and the impact it would have on the craft itself. Doing that, it would break the craft. Like you'd have shit falling out of the sky left and right. So there's got to be something else. It's not, and that's, I think, the biggest thing here is that we need to get away from thinking that these things, whatever they are nut and bolt craft that move through space in the way that we're familiar with. I think we need to start thinking about alternate ways. And I know Bob Lazar talked about using gravity waves to move through space. But I don't remember if it was on this documentary, if it was somebody else that was talking about this. But there's another theory that these craft are basically inside a bubble. And not like a bubble like, you know, you blow a bubble with soap or whatever. Like a bubble of space-time, essentially, where inside this bubble everything remains the same, and it's not the craft that's moving, it's this bubble that's moving. So everything inside this bubble is you know, just staying on an even level. You know, there's no change in acceleration of the craft, there's no change in the gravity that's affecting the craft, there's no change in the energy. It's the bubble itself that's moving through space. So the bubble is able to make these crazy maneuvers while the craft is unaffected because it's inside like a stasis bubble, I guess we could call it.
Brian, most of the ones that they talked about, if not all, have this bubble around them.
Yeah. Yeah, and there've been video that came out that actually kind of showed this. And there was a pilot on the documentary that was talking about when he was flying at, I think, 30,000 feet, he said, and he saw this cube that it looked like a cube inside a bubble that flew past him. And he said the bubble was see-through, but he could tell that there was a bubble there, and in it he could see the cube inside that bubble. So like maybe that's like a drone version of whatever the craft are,
Mm-hmm.
because the cube was obviously smaller, and he said it flew between two fighter jets, which are only flying 150 feet apart. So you think 150 feet, that's a good distance, but when you look at the size of an aircraft and the wingspan and the speed, like that's really not that much space between two craft, and to have something fly between that's crazy.
Yeah, we don't have the capability to do that.
We don't have the capability to make cubes fly.
Nope.
Just period. Let alone putting it in a bubble and making that fly at 30,000 feet.
Yeah, that's one thing that I found interesting is that they started talking about something that I didn't expect them to touch on, which was, firstly, exotic exhaust fields. And we've covered many stories where people have gone up and touched a UFO, gotten sick and died because of radiation from UFOs, weird things like that. But they talked to this doctor, and he gives a statement, and he's the gosh, Mike, I can't read my own writing. Sorry, guys. I think he's like the head doctor of NATO or Interpol or something like that. But he's like this head dude, and he basically says, I don't know what to do when I have soldiers coming to me that are sick, and their X-rays reveal that every internal organ they have has been barbecued, and they're still alive. And they even interview a soldier who looks like he's maybe been in the sun a little too long. Like maybe something's not right, and he goes on to explain that he had a close encounter with one of these craft, and there's even protocols and studies in place that the soldiers know about, that if you come in contact with one of these things, there's an 87% mortality rate.
And that was an insane statistic to hear. Like that's crazy.
From all the other things we covered, it kind of matches up, right? People, all the way from people getting sick and dying, like the grandma and mother, and the kids that were stopped on the road by that big craft. I mean,
the Cash Landrum.
Yeah. They ended up dying from the illnesses they contracted from that. The Flatwoods Monster case, all the way to, I mean, there's tons of cases where people,
even Mothman, the people with the bleeding eyes.
Yeah. For them to cover that, to me, I was like, whoa, they're covering all their bases here, And it, again, was jarring to hear about that,
Right. But and that in itself is a pretty extraordinary claim, but it's not like it's believable though. Like if these things exist, obviously it's made from exotic material and something that humans aren't familiar with, and if it's toxic to us, it would make perfect sense. Whether it be radioactive or if it's toxic or poisonous sort of thing. I don't think in reference to what they're talking about that it's really extraordinary, like a weird claim or anything that's too out there. Like they're not talking about people getting alien butt plugs and shit like that, or they didn't even touch on the mutilation phenomenon, human or cattle or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think they were just trying to really take a realistic approach to this whole thing, and they didn't want to get into all that super weird shit. They wanted to keep things kind of believable. And in the context of what they're talking about, that's a believable claim, I think. It would have been nice if they did reference the Cash Landrum incident, though, because that's a pretty big classic case that points to military involvement and shows the effect that it has on people.
Yeah, absolutely.
From a people's health. But, I think they were trying to stay away from going over the classic cases and just kind of sticking to why disclosure is so important and why these people believe what they're claiming.
Right. That takes us kind of to the next part of this documentary. All this stuff that they talk about is all the things that ATIP found. And they take this stuff to the government, and they were swiftly shut down. They didn't like what they found. They talk about something that I thought was a little bit heavy, Mike. called Project Legacy. Can you go into that at all?
So Project Legacy is basically the boogeyman. To me, every time they referenced Project Legacy, they could have at any point in time just switched it out for the Majestic 12. It kind of had that feel to it, where this is the group of people that know everything about what's going on and are controlling the narrative and disseminating the information as they see fit. And whether it's all the information, none of the information, misinformation, it all goes through Legacy or MJ12. It just seems to me it's Legacy is fitting. It's a fitting name because it goes back from the beginning of this whole thing. And if anyone's ever read the MJ12 document, it's very much the same sort of thing.
Yeah, I think that's what got them in trouble, is talking about that. And there's some claims that they make about that I'll let the documentary say for shadow banning purposes. But yeah, basically they talk about how there's plenty of downed UFOs, and they're recovered. They are recovered.
Yeah, that was discussed so many times through the documentary that we have the craft, and they're still sticking with the whole thing where they're not calling them aliens, but they're calling them what I can't remember how they refer to, but basically biologics or biological entities.
Yeah, biological
like
entity. Yeah.
Like they don't refer to them as dead bodies. They don't refer to them as aliens or extraterrestrials. And I think I've been saying this since the beginning when they did the switch from UFO to UAP, that the terminology is very important, and it's not just a change just for the sake of being a change. Like there's a reason they're using these terms.
Right. And that's a good point, because they shut down Lou Elizondo and his team, and I think they realized that, and they were able to go back to Congress and present their information to senators and stuff on an individual basis, and using the right wording and coming from the right angle, I think helped this project. They basically reinstated it and told them to continue their work. I don't know. They changed the name of the team, right? I don't recollect what they changed it to, but that's just one of the things they do. But the angle they took, which I think is what got them so far, is you hear about how these things could be a threat to our national security. This comes from the ATIP report. They had so many people in the military testify as to how, specifically saying how what these things demonstrate is shit that we don't have, and it's something that we can't do anything against. They had there's a few admirals, if I wasn't mistaken, but that rear admiral was talking about how they watched this craft flying over the ocean for a while, and then all of a sudden it dove into the water going at 400 miles an hour, and they have video of this. It did not create a splash. Mm-hmm. It did not slow down. And then when it emerged, it did not create a splash, and then sped up and took off.
Yeah. And that would make sense if it had that weird stasis bubble thing around it, because it's moving through without actually touching what it's moving through.
Yes, exactly. And when he was testifying to Congress about that caught a lot of their ears. And then being presented with a lot of this stuff on an individual basis got the ball rolling again for them. So there's a lot of video that we haven't seen that they show in this documentary. They talked to Fravor, and they talked to a few other people. They talked about Grush a lot again.
But Grush wasn't on the documentary, which I thought was weird too.
Yeah, I thought that was very weird. It makes me think of all the times I've heard a lot of these old school investigators say, you got to listen to David Grush. He's way more into it than what you can imagine. He had way more clearance than anybody else. But if I'm not mistaken, they had to rush him out of one of those hearings recently over a threat to his safety.
Yep. They shut everything down and got him out of there.
Yeah. So who knows? But they move into presenting Congress with a bill that would allow them to release, basically full disclosure, release all the information. But they talk about why they're not going to do that. And they come from an angle that I didn't think of. And it's, again, basically, without getting ourselves shadow banned, it's whoever retrieves these craft is going to be the new superpower. You know, they don't want any of it's literally a matter of national security. So, and Lou Elizondo says he's trying to say as much as he can without getting in trouble here. And there's still things that have to stay classified. And that, to me, that stood out to me as weird as why they kept trying to shut him down, because he's like playing by the rules here, isn't he?
He says he is. And he's very careful in the way he phrases things. So it seems like he is, but maybe he's going a little bit rogue.
Yeah. But yeah, I thought it was done very well. It's a great presentation of information. Like I said, it was a huge information dump. If you want to get caught up on this information, this subject, on an official capacity, of course they're poo-pooing Elizondo and his team now on an official level. But again, I try to walk into this thinking, these are the fucking people that the government picked to look into this.
Well, you got to be careful when you say the government, because that makes it seem like they're all a unified group.
Right.
And as we know, the government is very compartmentalized. And even within the military, there's things within the military that other people in the same branch of the military aren't privy to and isn't being reported to, say, Congress or the president directly. It's set up that way on purpose. So members of the government or members of the military, likely CIA, are aware of what's going on and picked specific people for their roles in the project. But a lot of people within the government, I mean, like we found out, a lot of when this started getting brought to Congress wasn't even aware that this was a thing. And they're the lawmakers of our country. So if they didn't even know it was a thing, like, who gave the clearance on it?
Right. Very true. Very interesting point.
Yeah. But yeah, it's a lot of these people they're very high up in their areas, and to have them come out and, for one, talk about this, that's pretty significant. But like I said at the start of the show, a lot of these guys make some very extraordinary claims that were not talked about on the documentary, but have been talked about in other interviews with them. So there's a guy, his name was, I say a guy like he's nobody. There's just some schlub, but his name is Jay Stratton. He's a former Pentagon intelligence official, and he has said, for one, he's involved with this disclosure process and is on the documentary talking about some of the things he knows. What he did not talk about was that he actually went and visited the Skinwalker Ranch. When he was at Skinwalker Ranch, he had an experience with something that he called a poltergeist. And when he left the ranch and went back home to Maryland, whatever this thing or energy or entity, whatever, however you want to view it, whatever this was, followed him back to his home. And his house became basically a hot spot for poltergeist activity. He began seeing shadow people and glowing orbs in his house.
Now, is that a red flag for you? I mean, does that like make you go, because to me that, like, there's plenty of other cases where we covered where that's happened to other people that I found completely believable and didn't have a problem with. Yeah.
No, to me, like, this is tying back to what I've been saying, that this stuff is related. There's a reason why he's involved in UFO disclosure. He visited the Skinwalker Ranch and then experienced what people would typically refer to as ghosts haunting his house. He even said there was, at one point, he saw a dog man or a wolf man in his backyard after that event at Skinwalker Ranch. And what we know from a skinwalker is that a skinwalker is basically an evil Navajo wizard that is able to turn into an animal. So isn't that kind of fucking weird?
Yeah.
he's not the only one from this documentary that visited the Skinwalker Ranch either. Do you remember Eric Davis? He was the guy that was with Hal Puthoff, who was talking. He was a scientist and also he worked for the Pentagon. But he was the guy that was with Hal Puthoff when they were showing him side by side. But he also visited the Skinwalker Ranch, and he said when he was there, he heard a voice in his head that basically told him that he was being watched. And then when he went home, he also began experiencing hauntings at his house. And he's been out there saying the same thing that I've been saying, that poltergeist activities and UFOs and aliens are connected to each other and part of the same thing. But that wasn't in the documentary either, because again, we're trying to keep things palatable, I guess, believable.
Right. Keep you feeling like you don't want to hear the X-Files theme song.
Yeah, exactly. But there's a lot of these guys that just make crazy claims like that. There's another guy. Do you remember? I can't remember what it was called, but what was that? What was the entity called that looked like the Michelin Man? Do you remember?
Oh God, a Bibendum.
Yeah, the Bibendum Man. So there's a guy on here named Jim Semivan, who is a former CIA official, and he didn't discuss this on the thing, or on the documentary, but he made a claim at one point that his wife had been abducted by aliens and had an alien implant in her face. And he started experiencing poltergeist activity in his house. And he will occasionally hear voices in his head that are coming from what he's calling aliens. And he said they tell him a lot of lies, but then they also tell him things that are wonderful. But the biggest claim he's made is that there was and he doesn't reference Bibendum Man, but he says that an alien visited his home that looked like the Michelin Man.
What the fuck?
Which I found interesting, because Bibendum Man is that's kind of obscure.
Yeah.
Like that's not going to be your typical sort of thing. And the fact that he didn't call it Bibendum Man, he called it the Michelin Man. That's interesting to me. That's very interesting to me.
No, where's he making these claims?
And he's made the claims in interviews. I've got some YouTube videos I can send if you're interested.
Yeah, that's crazy. Okay.
Yeah. But it's crazy to me that there's so many of these people that are linking things together. And I've seen people online that try to discredit these people based on these claims. Like, oh, look at how ridiculous these guys are on this documentary talking about aliens being real, but then they're talking about their houses being haunted as well. But there's so many different occurrences where this has happened with people that have been involved with the phenomenon some way, shape, or form, that they will experience UFOs or experience abduction experiences, but then also have hauntings and shadow people and poltergeist activity, or see cryptids. There's just so many cases where this happens, and especially people that have repeated experience with the phenomenon. It's almost like a symptom of it, like you think about like having a flu and how everybody experiences different symptoms, but there's all these different things, like you've got a cough and a stuffy nose and a fever. Those are all three separate things, but it's all part of the flu.
Mm-hmm.
Just like here with this phenomenon, like you're seeing UFOs in the sky, you've got Dogman in your backyard and a shadow person in your basement, and those are three separate things, but they're all symptoms of the same thing.
Right. It's interesting. Do you think with that theory in place, and I tend to agree with you greatly on that idea. Do you think we'll start to see them talk about the shit that has been reported at the Hadron Collider more? Do you think they're going to talk about stuff that happened at Skinwalker Ranch more and release footage from that? Or?
I would say if they do, we're probably a good 10 to 20 years away from that. I think what they're doing right now is floating the idea that whatever this is real. Because again, notice they're not saying aliens and they're not saying extraterrestrials. So they're putting the idea out there that there's something more that we as people, I guess, as a whole, aren't aware of. So they're kind of getting that notion out there first, and once that becomes accepted, then we can start getting into the weird shit. Once it gets accepted, then they can be like, it's not aliens. They're not from another planet. They're from another plane of existence that overlaps with our reality. And then once that becomes accepted, it's really not too far to say, this is what a lot of hauntings are, and this is what a lot of cryptids are. And that's why certain things appear once and you never see again, and other things are repeated over and over and over again. Like Bigfoot, for instance.
Right. They can easily just say, like, we didn't say alien the whole time, right? We could have just said alien. That's not what we fucking said.
But, I mean, no one has seen the Flatwoods Monster again. It was like it came down, it was witnessed, and it was never seen again. Maybe it was a barn owl. Maybe it was some fucking weird entity that was just being like, oh, shit, I got to get out of here. And then he bails and then never comes back. He's like, I'm not going back there. Fuck that.
Yeah.
This sucks.
Didn't mean to go there.
Yeah, it was all a mistake. Yeah, he's a scientist on the other side, just dicking around, and he ends up, he's like, oh, fuck.
Yeah. He was just standing there.
And he's like trying to get out of there, and little kids walk up on him, and he hisses at him, and he's, get out of here, punk kid.
He released that gas because he was scared. It was like a stress poop.
Yes. He's like, oh, shit, literally.
You made me gas myself, you little pricks. Beat it.
Yeah. Fuck out of here, damn fool kids.
Yeah.
But I think that would go a long way in explaining a lot of this stuff and like the weirder aspects of the abduction phenomenon and the links to poltergeist activity and UFO activity. Because those two things should not be going together. And like my Bigfoot is not Bigfoot series that I've been doing, though. Bigfoot and ghosts don't go together. Bigfoot and aliens shouldn't go together. But there's so many different occurrences that have been reported where they go together. Like, is that a coincidence? Do aliens like Bigfoot too? Is that why? Is Bigfoot a ghost and that's why there's hauntings that happen? Like,
right.
There's a lot more to it, and I think that this is like the first step to getting that out there. And then we're going to see more as things start to become accepted.
Right. Yeah. Again, useful information dump, shocking information.
Mm-hmm.
I stand by the statement that they're releasing everything they can without fucking getting thrown in jail. And it's just, to me, a big confirmation of stuff that maybe we already knew, but a confirmation by the people who I would want to look into this.
Mm-hmm. But also, like, think about the way that they're going about it, right? Like, they're putting it out there. They've got all these top guys coming out there that have credible backgrounds talking about this thing being real. And it's like a slow process to get people accepting. Like, if they just came out and said, there's things in another plane of existence that we have no access to, don't know how they get over here, and they're able to manipulate space, time, and form here as a physical being, disappear at will, show up in your homes, do whatever the fuck they want, and bail, and also shadow people are real. Like, just throw that out there. People are going to be, what the fuck? But if you're like, hey, we know about UFOs, but it's not UFOs. It's not what you think about. It's UAP because it's a phenomenon. It's not a craft, so to speak. And these aren't aliens or extraterrestrials. They're biological entities.
Mm-hmm.
Just kind of make it a little more palatable for the public. And they're like, okay, all right, I'm on board now. I got you. Okay. And then they're like, by the way, those biological entities might also be responsible for ghost activity. What? You gotta do a slow easing in. You can't just come out with the good shit right out the gate.
Right.
But I don't know. I thought it was a good documentary. I thought it was it would make a great double feature I mean, it would be a 6-hour long double feature, but it would make a great double feature if you watched Stephen Greer's Disclosure interviews from 2001. Watch those and then watch this and just see the overlap there, and the fact that Greer was putting some of this shit out with some of the people from there's a few people in this documentary that were in his documentary 24 years ago. And you get to hear more of their story in that, because like each person has a significant amount of time to tell their story. So it would be a really good watch. Like if you got a lazy Sunday and you're just like, you know what, it's going to be an alien Sunday. Watch the Disclosure documentary on YouTube. I believe it's 2-hour parts, but there might be a thing that puts all 4 hours together. I don't recall. I remember watching it in 2 parts when I watched it. I've watched it a couple of times now, because it's so fucking interesting to hear these people talking about their experiences. And then watch that, then go and watch this documentary, and it's pretty fucking mind-blowing, honestly, when you have the two together, because you're hearing these claims from the people that witness them. Then you're hearing this stuff from the people that are responsible for the programs that look into this. So you're kind of seeing the same thing through 2 different lenses, and they both kind of come to the same conclusion that this isn't us that's doing this, which is very interesting.
Yeah, that this is really happening. It's just like watching the Greer stuff and then watching this. Like I had to sit there for a minute, and I was like, I don't think I want aliens to be real. I don't think I want that to be happening in the reality I live in, because
I do. Fuck yeah. Let's go.
Right. Well, I mean, it was just so like heavy, like the stuff they're saying. And to me, I was just like, God, like, okay, so it was just like having the person who on that was abducted and tell their story. I was like, well, that made it terrifying.
Yeah.
And like, and after that, like that's the reviews say terrifying, and I get what they mean. I really do. I was like, whoa, fuck. All right.
Cause it's making you like kind of rethink your perception of reality. Like this is the world that I thought I lived in, but now these people are telling me there's a whole different world.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I talk a lot of shit about Greer because of who he is, but the documentary, that's the best thing about the documentary, is it's not there to boost his ego. He doesn't even talk in the documentary other than the introduction at the beginning. He just lets the people that the people that had the experiences tell their story, and that's all it is. He doesn't cut in. He doesn't have a narrator or talk about his $2,000 camping trips. It's just letting the people tell their stories, and that's the best thing about it. Because no matter what you think about Greer, it's these people. That's what the focus is. It's these people and their stories, and they tell who the people are, what their credentials are, and you can decide for yourself whether you want to believe that individual, rather than having Greer be like, oh, I've got all these military people telling me this story and that. And you're like, fuck off, Greer. I don't give a shit that you can bench press 400 pounds. It doesn't matter to me. Put your shirt back on.
Yeah, no shit. Yeah, well, let us know what you guys think about it. I mean, I think it's safe to say that we're like, with all the information that's being, quote, let out through whistleblowers, there's overwhelming evidence to say that that's all real. That part of the world is real. The aliens, UFOs, all of it's like enough information has been presented to me to where it's pretty undeniable at this point.
Yeah. So now that we know it's real, it's up to us to decide what it is or figure out what it is.
Yeah. Let us know in the comments below. Look at that. I'm starting a rap album. Holy shit.
This isn't a YouTube channel. Oh, but it kind of is.
Yeah.
If you're listening on YouTube, leave it in the comments below. If you're not listening on YouTube, then, I don't know, go flood Aldo Poe's inbox or something.
Yeah. Write your own rap verse about Disclosure and send it to us.
And then Mateo will rap it for you.
Ooh, shit. Yeah. Make you beat and everything.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I won't.
Thank you for listening to the Whatcast. You can find us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, iTunes, and YouTube. Enjoy the podcast. Get yourself a Whatcast t-shirt or a sticker pack. Who was that dude on that one episode? via the links in Homie's page. All this and more can be found at www.thewhatcasters.com. Thanks again for listening and have a great week.
You are not ready, but we will still save you. In your quest for self-destruction, you will send up more satellites, and we will be there, waiting to come again.